Let's be real, we are drowning in data. It's everywhere. But here's the million-dollar question. How much of it is actually helping you make better, smarter decisions? Well, that's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to walk the path from all that overwhelming noise to a clear, confident choice. It's all about turning raw data into real-world action.
So, where do we even begin this journey? Well, it all starts with a problem that every single one of us faces, probably every single day, having to make choices without knowing all the facts.
No, really, think about it for a second. That last big decision you had to make, was it driven by cold, hard data, or was it more of a well-educated guess? Maybe even just a gut feeling? That right there, that's the fundamental challenge we're diving into.
And this is where everything starts to click. It's a huge mental shift. You see, we have to stop looking for that one single perfect right answer, because, let's be honest, that almost never exists. Instead, data science teaches us to think in probabilities. We're moving away from the total chaos of just guessing and into the clarity of calculating likelihood. It's not about having a crystal ball to predict the future. It's about understanding the odds.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? It really boils down to the core logic of all data science, and it's a powerful idea, finding the signal hidden in all the noise.
You know, at its heart, data science isn't really about super complex math or crazy algorithms. It's a search for meaning. The whole goal is to shift through this mountain of chaotic information to find one thing, and one thing only: repeatable structures, repeatable patterns. And why is that so important? Because if something repeats, it's predictable.
I love this analogy. Think of your data like a really noisy radio, right? Most of what you're hearing is just static, that random, meaningless chaos. What data science does is it denoises it. It's like you're carefully, slowly tuning the dial, filtering out all that static until, boom, you find a clear, meaningful signal. And this is absolutely the key takeaway. If you can't find the pattern, you can't engineer the decision. It's as simple as that.
So you're probably wondering, okay, what do these patterns even look like? Well, here's the cool part. Almost all of the super complex analytics out there, it really just boils down to a hunt for 5 basic patterns. Just 5. Think of them as the fundamental building blocks for getting any kind of insight.
First up, we're on the hunt for what are called hidden structures or latent factors. These are the really powerful concepts that you can't see or measure directly, but you know they're there. It's kind of like the giant part of an iceberg that's lurking underwater.
A perfect example is something like customer loyalty, right? You can't just slap a single number on that, but you can see its effects all over the place, in repeat purchases, in glowing online reviews, you name it. And when you can identify these hidden drivers, you stop just putting band-aids on symptoms, and you start addressing the root cause of a problem. And wow, that is a massive leap forward in strategic thinking.
Okay, so finding those hidden drivers is an amazing first step. But what about organizing all the data points we can see, all our customers, for instance? That brings us to our second pattern, finding natural groups using something called cluster analysis.
Just picture a giant, messy cloud of all your customer data. It looks like chaos, but cluster analysis can go in and automatically find the distinct groups hiding in plain sight. Suddenly, you can see your high-value shoppers or your brand-new visitors, or maybe, and this is a crucial one, customers who are at risk of leaving. And just like that, you can stop with the one-size-fits-all approach and start targeting your actions with laser-like precision.
All right, so now we've got our data sorted into these nice, neat groups. The next logical question is, how do those groups relate to everything else? This is our third pattern, and it's all about relationships. We're talking about regression. It's just a fancy way of asking, when one thing changes, what happens to another? For instance, if our marketing budget goes up, do sales go up with it? If the temperature outside gets hotter, how much more ice cream are we going to sell? Regression models that exact relationship, which lets us forecast the future. The impact here is absolutely massive, because it helps us answer that critical business question, how much? How much inventory do we need? How many people do we need on staff? It's the key to smart resource planning. So, regression is fantastic for predicting how much. But what if your decision isn't a number? What if it's a simple binary yes or no? Well, that's where our fourth pattern, classification, comes in. It's still about relationships in the data, but the goal here is totally different. It's about drawing a clear line in the sand to separate things into distinct categories. This is the engine behind so many automated decisions we see every day. Just think about it. Is this email spam or not spam? Is this credit card transaction fraud or legitimate? Classification is what finds those boundary lines so we can automate these crucial yes-no decisions and do it at an incredible scale. Okay, so far, everything we've talked about, groups, numbers, categories, that's all pretty structured data. But what about the messiest, most common type of data out there? I'm talking about words, human language. Our fifth and final pattern tackles this head-on with something called natural language processing, or NLP.
I mean, just think about the sheer volume of text we all create every single day. Product reviews, customer service emails, social media comments. It's a huge, messy, unstructured pile of opinions. NLP is the magic that can read all of it at once. It can pull out the main topics, figure out if the sentiment is positive or negative, and really truly understand the voice of the customer at a scale that no team of humans could ever hope to match.
All right, so we've got our 5 golden patterns that we're hunting for. But the next big question is, how in the world do we find them when we're dealing with mountains, and I mean mountains of data? Well, this is where the machine learning engine roars to life and supercharges the entire process.
And the difference here is, honestly, it's night and day. Think about the old way, the traditional way. A person, an analyst, had to come up with a guess, a hypothesis, and then, manually, painstakingly dig through all the data to see if they were even on the right track. With machine learning, we completely flip the script. We just feed all the data to the computer, and the machine discovers the patterns for us.
So, it's really important to get this right. Machine learning isn't a replacement for the thinking part of the process. It's the engine that automates the searching part. It's what allows us to hunt for those 5 patterns, but way faster across unbelievably massive data sets and with a level of complexity that, frankly, no human brain could ever manage on its own. It's the leap from building something with hand tools to having a fully automated factory.
And that brings us to the final and honestly the most important piece of this entire puzzle. Because look, finding patterns is cool, it's fascinating, but it's totally useless if we don't do anything with them. We have to build a bridge from that pattern we found to a meaningful action.
You see, discovering a pattern, that gives you an insight. But an insight is not an outcome. The real goal, the whole point of this, is something called decision intelligence. And that's the art and science of building that bridge. The one that goes from a neat discovery to a real-world, valuable action. That bridge, the one that connects insight to impact, that's the only thing that really matters in the end.
And this really shows the whole journey from start to finish. We start with just raw data, right? A total mess. The tools and patterns we've been talking about, they transform that raw data into knowledge. Those are the meaningful patterns we find. But that final critical step is using decision intelligence to turn all that knowledge into wisdom. And what is wisdom? It's making the right decision at exactly the right time.
So let's leave it with this final really important thought. While coding and fancy algorithms might be the tools we use, the real work here, it isn't about programming, it's about thinking. The ability to break down a complex problem, to understand the real-world constraints, and to connect an insight to an actual outcome, these are decision intelligence skills. And that is what ultimately turns a pile of data into a real competitive advantage.